What's up, everybody? This is Kaiana Miller with Hear Me Out Sports Podcast. Come to you with my wide receiver week 3 start 'em, sit 'em. We'll do a little bit of review of my week 2, how I did. I'm honest with you. Like I said, I'm fantasy football's honesty broker. So I'm going to come to you with my stats from how well I did last week, and then we're going to talk start 'em, sit 'em. So let's get after it. Okay, like I said, starting off with my week 2 review. Overall, I was 69% correct in who I said to start and who I said to sit. Again, the threshold's 12 points, so if they score at least 12 points, we could consider that a start them. If they score less than 12 points, we consider it a sit them. So I told you to start 42 receivers. Only 22 of those guys actually ended up scoring at least 12 points. That's 52%. Out of 3 more close calls, so within 1 point. And that would have pushed it up to 58% if I'd got those. But even with that, still looked okay, not great. Like I said, just barely over 50%, not great. But only 38 total wide receivers even had 12 points. And so out of that, 22 out of 38, that's not as bad, 58%. But my sit-ums, I was 50 of 63, so pretty solid on that. And I don't choose bottom of the depth chart receivers. They have to be either first string or second string. And in some cases, like the Titans, I usually only do 2 receivers anyway because they're only playing usually 2 receivers. So again, trying to be the honesty broker for fantasy football. I'm not going to be the guy that has 85 predictions and only one of them is correct, and I toot the horn on the one that's correct and I ignore the other 84. So coming at you with realistic expectations, but get after me if I caused you to lose last week because I told you to start someone who sucked. Let me know, and I'll shoot you some cash to help cover your league fee this year. All right, moving on. Start off with the week 3 this Thursday. It's going to be Browns-Steelers. So honestly, not as an exciting game as it has been the last couple of years because of the state of both teams. I kind of expect the Steelers, if their offense keeps struggling the way it has, to switch over to Kenny Pickett sooner than I would have expected at the beginning of the season. Not a Trubisky hater, but I might expect that a little bit. But that's a talk for Jace. That's not a talk for me. I'm talking wide receivers only. So looking at the Steelers first overall, we're going to start Deontay Johnson this week against the Browns. The Browns' defense has been okay, but they've kind of fallen apart late in games, and I expect the same thing. So give me Deontay Johnson as the one guy of the Steelers this week that's going to start at wide receiver. I don't think Claypool or Pickens are going to have much of a game. Again, the offense has kind of been stagnant, so I'm not expecting them to be able to support 2 fantasy wide receivers starting in the same week. Until they can prove otherwise. The Browns, kind of the same thing. They're a run-first team, a really, really, really run-first team, especially with Jacoby Brissett until Deshaun Watson gets back. So I got Amari Cooper. He had a pretty good game last week, and I think that the Browns want to get him more involved. I mean, they traded for him for a reason. They gave him a contract for a reason. So look at Amari Cooper. Start him this week. I'm sitting Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think this is going to be a mostly running and defense game from both sides until both teams are tired, and then hopefully we get a little bit of action through there, but one guy starting each team. Moving on to my beloved Carolina Panthers, who are one of 6 teams, I think, that are 0-2 right now, and New Orleans Saints. So I don't expect the Saints to be throwing with much success. The Panthers' defense overall has looked pretty good. The Giants didn't have any startable wide receivers last week. I know it's the Giants, but the Giants are better this year than they have been, and even Saquon Barkley had a bad game. So Panthers' defense has been pretty good. I don't expect anyone in the Saints to start, especially Jameis Winston's all banged up, and Alvin Kamara, on the other hand, should hopefully play this week for the Saints. So I think they're going to try to run the ball more. Carolina's weakness on defense is their interior defensive line, so I think they're going to try to run the ball more. And I don't expect any Saints receivers to be startums this week, so sit them all. Panthers, I had faith going into the season on them. I'm kind of losing that. Give me DJ Moore as the only guy to start right now. And he hasn't had great games. Last week he went over, but the week 1 he didn't have a great week. But I expect the Panthers to focus more on McCaffrey and DJ Moore getting their playmakers the ball. So I think that even in scenarios where maybe they shouldn't, they're going to try to force him the ball. Give me DJ Moore as the one start in this game overall. I'm sitting everybody else on both sides. Texans, Bears, 2 teams that have, kind of surprised, but also kind of been right where they're at the same time. So Texans, Brandon Cooks, he's a target hog on volume alone every week. I'm pretty much starting him until Davis Mills starts looking for a different receiver on the Texans. So I'm starting Brandon Cooks, but I'm sitting Nico Collins. On the Bears side, Mooney's been pretty much terrible. Anyone who drafted him, especially in the top 8 rounds, is probably pretty upset with himself right now. But I think Mooney, this is his get-right game. It's against the Texans defense. It's not really existent. So give me Darnell Mooney to have a bounce-back game. I think that the Bears will try to throw the ball a little bit more with Justin Fields to see what he can actually do. I mean, he only threw 11 passes last week, so pretty pathetic. But give me Darnell Mooney to have a bounce-back game here and start him for the Bears. Chiefs-Colts. So Patrick Mahomes probably should have believed him when he first said at the beginning of the year that they're going to be throwing the ball around and mixing it up with the different receivers. There's not going to be just one guy like Tyreek Hill who they're going to keep throwing to. So I should have believed him. I started Juju last week, and he didn't have a great game. But I expect this to be a higher-scored game for the Chiefs specifically. Give me Juju to start and give me MVS as an over-the-top guy. I think the MVS will have one deep touchdown this week that's going to propel him to that 12-point game. And I think Juju will have the volume to get him over 12 points. So start both of them. Sky Moore, I'm only mentioning him because he's still a topic of discussion as a rookie, but he's really not been playing much at all. So you can pretty much stash him. If you're in redraft leagues, you probably drop him right now, and it wouldn't hurt anything. But sitting Sky Moore, sitting Mecole Hardman. On the Colts side, with any Matt Ryan team, you want to start their wide receiver one, their true wide receiver one, not the guy who's going to be wide receiver one in the game because everyone else is hurt. So if Pittman plays, you got to start him. He'll have a good game, and that's it. No one else on the Colts has proven that they can even do anything. So starting only Pittman on the Colts side. Bills-Dolphins. So I'm expecting a shootout. I'm actually not. I think both defenses are going to buckle down a little bit more. I'm not expecting a super high-scoring game. So give me Stephon Diggs. You got to start him every week no matter what for the Bills. And I'm sitting Gabe Davis if he plays, and I'm sitting Isaiah McKenzie, who's had a nice couple weeks. And on the Dolphins side, give me Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill for the big play. I think he'll get at least one. And Jalen Waddle because he's the guy. He's got the run out for the catch, kind of like Tyreek, but he runs a lot of shorter routes for Tua, and I think that volume will get him there. Cedric Wilson, I don't care if he's playing or not this week. I'm sitting him until he proves that he's at least okay, back to health. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle are must starts, and so Stephon Diggs. So give me all those guys. But again, I'm not expecting a shootout like a lot of people are. I think that the game's going to go under the expected. So give me those three guys to start for the Bills and Dolphins. Lions, Vikings. Lions a pretty pleasant surprise here. Vikings looked great in week 1 and looked absolutely terrible in week 2. So I expect the Vikings to bounce back. They played a pretty good Philadelphia defense, albeit one that the Lions put up 35 points on in week 1. I think that primetime Kirk Cousins is pretty terrible, like all the statistics say, and as everyone knows. So a non-primetime game here. I'm expecting Jefferson and Thielen to have big games. Specifically Thielen, I don't think he'll outscore Jefferson, but I think he'll have his first pretty good game of the season. He hasn't really been present much so far. So give me Thielen to kind of have a little bit of a bounce back. And then the Lions side, ARSB, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got to start him. People are finally starting to realize that he's the real deal, that he wasn't a flash in the pan last year. So you got to start him every week. He's the only guy in the Lions, though, that I'm starting this week. I'm sitting Josh Reynolds and I'm sitting DJ Chark. And then on the Viking side, again, just JJ and Adam Thielen. I'm sitting Osborne. I think that they're going to get a lead early and then try to run the ball. So see the Vikings to win. Ravens Patriots. So I got the Ravens wrong the first 2 weeks big time because I said, hey, sit all the receivers. I don't expect them to be throwing the ball as much as they have. And straight up, I got to give their wideouts some props. They've looked good the first couple weeks. So this week I'm starting Rashad Bateman. He looks to be for real. I'll start Bateman, but I'm sitting DuVernay and I'm sitting DeMarcus Robinson against a good Patriots defense overall. Not as elite as they have been in the past, but a good one nonetheless. And on the Patriots side, Jacoby Myers seeing almost 12 targets a game. I think he's going to keep going over that 12-point total if he's going to get that many looks every game. So I expect Jacoby Myers to go over. I don't think that Nelson Aguilar is going to have a big play like he did last week. And if you took that one big play away, he would only score about 4 or 5 points. So take Aguilar, sit him this week, sit Devontae Parker until they can figure out how to get Devontae incorporated in the offense. Bengals, Jets. Bengals have looked absolutely terrible, and this is their get-right game as well. I know that I've said that about one or two teams so far, but I think it's true this week. Week 3 is going to be a get-right game. Joe Burrow is still coming off. He had his appendix burst a little over a month ago, so I don't think he's been right the first 2 weeks. I think this is the week that he's going to really, bounce back. So give me Jamar Chase, give me T. Higgins as his wide receivers 1 and 2. They're going to have big games. Tyler Boyd I'm putting on the bench this week. just because Joe Mixon's presence will I guess mitigate the chances that 3 Bengals wide receivers score 12+ points. So give me Higgins, give me Chase. On the Jets side, they looked really good last week, especially late against the Browns. Garrett Wilson he looks like he's the number one. In fact, in my opinion, he looks like he's the best rookie wide receiver this year. His stats back that up, and they're very similar to Jamar Chase as a rookie. So through his first 2 games, I should say. So give me Garrett Wilson as a must start until he has a flop or 2 in a row. And then Elijah Moore, again, I think is a get-right kind of game for him. The Bengals defense has been pretty terrible so far this year, so I got Wilson on the Jets side, and I'm sitting Corey Davis. Raiders-Titans. Raiders didn't look very good last week. They kind of blew that lead to the Cardinals, and Devontae Adams didn't have a great game. I expect him to light up the Tennessee secondary, and I expect Hunter Renfrow to just kind of feed over the middle. The Titans looked really bad last week, and I don't expect them to fix it this week either, especially because their offense isn't moving the ball. So Treylon Burks has looked pretty good. He's got a decent yards per catch and yards per target, and honestly, he gets targeted almost every time he's running around. So give me Treylon Burks on the Tennessee Titans side, especially I expect them to be trailing, and they're going to have to throw the ball again. I'm going to sit Robert Woods because he looks like a 30-year-old wide receiver coming off a torn ACL because he is. So I'm sitting him, and I'm sitting Nick Akine. Eagles-Commanders. Eagles played awesome last week. They've looked good so far through first 2 weeks on the offensive side of the ball especially. I got A.J. Brown. I got Devontae Smith, both having a good game here against the Commanders. Sitting Kez Watkins, who's a big play threat, but he's also reliant on the big play for his fantasy scoring. So give me Brown, give me Smith on the Eagles side. Commanders, Carson Wentz, I don't know if he can string 3 decent games together, but I'm going to say he can. Give me Jahan Dotson and give me Curtis Samuel. Both 2 guys who have proved to have gained the trust, I should say, of Carson Wentz. So I like Jahan Dotson. He's for real as a rookie as well. And I like Curtis Samuel because he's getting touches all over the field. Terry McLaurin, although I think McLaurin's more talented than for sure Samuel, I think that he's a sit until we see the Commanders actually use him in a game because he's been pretty much non-present the first 2 weeks. Jaguars, Christian Kirk looks like he's been worth every penny so far. I'm going to keep starting him until he has multiple weeks of bad games in a row. So give me Christian Kirk even against a good Chargers secondary, especially if they have to throw the ball. I think they're going to get to Christian Kirk and the volume will propel him. Marvin Jones Jr., Zay Jones, though, I'm going to sit both of them. On the Chargers side, I expect Mike Williams to have another good game against a pretty bad Jacksonville secondary. And Keenan Allen, if he's back, I think he'll have a good game as well. But I'm sitting DeAndre Carter. I think the only 2 guys on the Chargers side outside of their tight end, because Gerald Everett's been a target hog for the Chargers, especially down in the red zone. So expect Mike Williams and Keenan Allen to have a decent game starting both of those guys. Rams-Cardinals. So Rams, I'm starting Cooper Kupp. Don't need to talk about that at all. Allen Robinson, I'm also starting. He had a touchdown last week, and it looked like they were actually trying to incorporate him in the offense, and I think they'll do the same thing here in Arizona. But the Rams' defense has not looked nearly as good as it has in the past. They're giving up points. They just gave up over 20 to the Falcons, for heaven's sake. So I got both Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore, if he plays, going over for the Arizona Cardinals. Greg Dortch had a couple nice weeks to start the season, but I don't think he sees the volume that he needs in order to have a third straight decent game. So I'm sitting Greg Dortch this week, even though I like what I've seen from him so far. I think that Rondale Moore is going to kind of take those opportunities from him. Falcons, Drake London has been a really great receiver, a rookie receiver there for the Falcons. He's been the wide receiver 1, and he's getting usage. They're playing a bad Seahawks team. So I'm starting Drake London. I'm sitting every other Falcons wide receiver until further notice. And on the Seahawks side, I got Metcalf and I got Lockett. They're top 2 receivers, of course. And I'll start both of those guys this week. I expect this to be a little bit higher scoring than people might expect, not because their offenses are great, but because both defenses seem to be pretty poor. So I'm starting Lockett, I'm starting Metcalf for the Seahawks, and I'm starting Drake London for the Falcons. Packers-Bucks. Packers don't seem to want to throw to receivers much, so give me Allen Lazard in a game where I think they'll have to throw a little bit more than they did last week, where they just ran the ball straight down the Bears' throat. So give me Allen Lazard as the one Packers receiver to start this week. I don't like Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs as long as they're playing with Aaron Rodgers as rookies. Aaron Rodgers is temperamental, and he doesn't seem to trust any of the rookies. So Christian Watson specifically, he had 3 targets last week, 3 catches, 9 yards, and all of them are like quick screen passes. So that just shows that they have to scheme stuff where they're making Aaron Rodgers throw it to him, or else he's not going to throw it to those guys. So I'm sitting everyone but Allen Lazard. On the Bucs side, if Julio Jones plays, I'm starting him. He looked good in week 1. I know it's another nagging injury there for Julio, but I expect him to be good. Chris Godwin, if he plays, I'm starting him too. Mike Evans is suspended for 1 game, so he's not going to be playing. That'll free up a lot of targets for Jones and Godwin. But sit Perriman, sit Gage. I didn't like what I saw from Gage last week. I was a little bit disappointed in him. I thought he'd have a better game, especially with Godwin out, but he didn't. And then news today is that the Bucs signed Cole Beasley to their practice squad, and they're expected to elevate him to the active roster pretty soon here. So interesting to see how that goes, but I'm going to leave Beasley out of the analysis until I actually see him on the roster first. So start Julio Jones and start Chris Godwin this week for the Bucs. Niners Broncos. Niners side, I think it helps the receivers that Jimmy G's back for 2 reasons. 1, I think he's a better thrower of the football at this time than Trey Lance is. And 2, Jimmy G doesn't run the ball. So I don't think that they're going to use their quarterback anywhere near the same way as they did Trey Lance. Still going to be a running team, but they're going to actually throw it with their quarterback instead of run it with him. Give me Deebo Samuel, though, to get those schemed running plays as well as the targets as a wideout. And then I like Brandon Ayuk against the Broncos have looked pretty terrible this year so far, especially on defense. So give me Deebo, give me Brandon Ayuk as both going over 12 points. On the Broncos side, I'm only starting Courtland Sutton. Jerry Jeudy is the exact opposite of Mr. Reliable. He's Mr. Unreliable. So I'm not putting him in anymore, especially with he's got these nagging injuries. I'm not going to put him in anymore until he can string together 2 or 3 games of good play. So only starting Sutton on the Broncos side. And we're finishing off here with a NFC East rivalry game that kind of actually has some importance because whoever wins here can either be tied to the Eagles at the end of this week or, only 1 game behind. So Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, and Noah Brown. I'm actually starting both of them. The Giants' defense isn't great. They looked okay against a pretty bad Carolina offense last week, but they haven't looked great. I expect CeeDee Lamb and Noah Brown to both go over that 12-point threshold. Even with Cooper Rush, Cooper Rush looked good to me last week. So give me both those guys to start. Giants, I'm not starting anyone. I'm sitting all their receivers. Kadarius Toney is probably their best bet. Maybe Sterling Shepard to have a decent game. But the Cowboys' ability to pressure the quarterback is legit. Micah Parsons is for real. Their team's been pressuring quarterback both week 1 and week 2. So I don't expect the Giants to score a lot of points here, and I don't expect any of the receivers to really have enough time to get depth downfield to catch passes and get yards. So I'm sitting all my Giants receivers this week. That wraps it up for week 3. Start them, sit them for the receivers. As always, hit me in the comments. Let me know. I love answering questions. I answered a lot of questions last week. You can find us on Twitter at HMO Sports. You can find us on Instagram. You can ask us questions there. But comment in here, either here or on any of our other social media platforms. Let us know how much your league fees are. If we blow up for you, there's a decent chance we'll throw you your league fee cash to cover you down for us not helping you and actually hurting you. If you follow what we're telling you to do, of course. As always, I'm here to answer questions, so let me know. If you need any statistical analysis done, let me know. I got a big stats background. I can actually run real tests and not just look and say, oh, this guy averages this many yards, so start him. I love doing what we're doing here. Happy to be able to talk sports with anyone. And we're going to be starting up some live streaming there on Twitch on Fridays and potentially Saturdays as well. We're going to answer any fantasy football questions you guys have. Our game of preference is typically Warzone. None of us are that great at it, but we enjoy playing it. So find us over on Twitch. Look for us to start streaming on Fridays and Saturdays. You can ask us any questions you got there, either on the comments or we'll let you play with us if you prefer that as well. So let us know. As always, we're happy for all you guys that watch us. We're very appreciative of it. We do this for you guys. We're just trying to help everyone out. We're not charging anyone money. So let us know what you think. Get at me. Tell me how dumb I am. And as always, when in doubt, hear me out.